Hi parents, it's Tina, and I'm going to give you a rundown of what I did with your Wise Girls this week. So when I come, I usually bring a curriculum that is specifically focused on nutrition and on movement. And we check in like we always do. And my check-in question was, what is something that's like small for you, but has like a big impact for you? Something that would seem little, but is really important to you. And so some share outs with that had to do with like, well, I really have to have my door closed a particular way. Or I have to listen to a particular, to a fan when I'm going to sleep. And I know how that feels, and you might too. These things that are small that can make a huge difference, even with like food. One girl had to share out that she's like, if I'm gonna have vanilla ice cream, I gotta have like olive oil and salt on top, which is quite delicious. That parlayed into movement. Like little things that we can do in movement can make a huge difference. So we started out with a game that was called Movement Telephone. I'm sure you're very familiar with the game of telephone. You whisper something, someone whispers it to the next person. It goes all the way around and you see what kind of crazy phrase you end up. So in Movement Telephone, all the girls are lined up facing one direction, and the girl at the very end comes, taps their shoulder on the girl in front of her, who turns around and she shows her move. And then that girl turns around, taps the other girl, she shows that move, and then she makes up her own. So it's pretty fun. By the time you get to the end of the line, that person has to remember a lot of moves. So a lot of it has to do with hand-eye coordination and memorization, and also eye contact and getting more comfortable with one another. We did something very similar with drawing, right? We had one girl at the end who had a piece of paper and was drawing on another girl's back on this paper. And then that girl would interpret what that drawing was. And, you know, by the end, the drawings are really kind of funny. So someone started out with a flower and it just ended up sort of being like this Picasso piece at the end. And they got a good giggle and laugh out of that. So just to illustrate, like, movements, tiny movements can mean a lot. We also did left, right, center. I don't know if you're familiar with that game. You got to know your left and your right pretty fast. And if you take exercise classes or do yoga, you know, I see it all the time as a yoga teacher. So oftentimes our intellect brain can't really link with our muscle memory. So while we're hearing left or we're hearing right with like a pose or a leg, our muscle memory can act a lot differently. So that's what these exercises do. They kind of bridge that connection between our body really like understanding something that our brain is telling it to do. It increases our sense of proprioception. That's our awareness of our body in space and time. It's very important that we are in our bodies, right? That we exist in our bodies. So I'd love to start out this movement light like that. In nutrition, like I shared with them, it's important to know what a macronutrient and even a micronutrient is. It's important to know like why we're eating foods and what they do for us. So the discussion was about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And in order to not put them to sleep, I put out a bunch of different foods, right, in categories. Here are your carbohydrates, here are your healthy fats, and here are your proteins. And now I want you to build a snack. And the snack that they built was really, really kind of cute. They were making like little insects, right? And so they needed to tell me what was the celery. The celery is the carbohydrate. What's the apple? The apple is the carbohydrate. What's the cream cheese on this? I also brought nut butter. That would be protein, or that would be a healthy fat. I also had pumpkin seeds, toasted pumpkin seeds that many girls had never tried before and that they tried and they liked. And that's really what it's all about. If I can bring, and Sierra and I can bring like the artistic quality into foods, you're more likely to see the girls like get hands-on, because food is an all sensory experience. You've heard me say that before. It doesn't feel so much pressure, right? And we also always honor the no thank you bite. I'd like you to try it. If you don't like it, I'm not going to be offended if you spit it out. I know that can be really hard to hang that one around the dinner table, but that's my one for you. That's my thing that you can take with this is understand that food is an all sensory experience. I remember when my child was an infant, I was told, you have a child try something 8 times. Have them try 8 times. Maybe not back to back, but 8 times before they give that final, they don't want to. And so just encourage that. Lots of times the textures inside of mouths, they will spit it out. Try not to get offended. They did go as far as to putting it in their mouth, right? So if we have, if you have what's called a selective eater, I don't know if we're going to use like, picky eater is the term. Remember that the more that you can offer experiences with food in different ways, the more likely they are to feel more comfortable about it. And so that was our wrap up. The girls are doing great. We are in that formation stage. They are learning how to coexist with one another. They're learning how to get along, and they're learning how to really just bring out the best in one another. And it's beautiful to see at this stage. So I just look forward to bringing them more awesome education that's much needed in the field of social, emotional, and physical learning.